Hi, this is Paul. I hope you've been enjoying all the conversations that I've been posting lately. I just haven't had time to make too much original content lately. So when I do conversations, if it's appropriate for public sharing and if everybody's willing, then I share them. And I've really enjoyed a number of the conversations that I've been posting lately. A lot of interesting people have been willing to talk or wanting to talk, and I've got more conversations on the way. So I'm sure they'll keep coming. The conversations are actually a favorite part of the channel for me. As I said to the meetup last night that I'll talk about in a minute, the I learn I learned so much from all of you in the comments and the conversations. This has been just one of the most intensely rich learning experiences of my life. And in that vein, we had a meetup last night in San Jose. I'll talk a little bit about the Jordan Peterson book tour event that happened, and we had this meetup before the book tour. A special thanks to the San Jose Christian Reformed Church, who gave us a room to use, and we had 6 of us drive down from Sacramento, and I think 5 or 6 drove up from Fresno, and Kyle and Erica came up from San Luis Obispo, and we had some new faces from the South Bay area. And you might notice Nick over there in the corner. Nick came over from Santa Cruz, so it was just it's just so much, these meetings. I don't know if there's much fun for everybody else, but there's so much fun for me. And so I meet new friends there, and we just spent 2 hours talking. And one of the comments from one of the Sacramento contingent that drove down was 2 hours is just not enough time, because here in Sacramento we go 4 or 5 or 6 hours sometimes, and we just talk, and just loving it all over the map in all kinds of different areas wherever the conversations go. Just terrific conversations, and just had a terrific time at our meetup. But at 7 o'clock, we had to break down the place and clean up our mess so we could leave be gracious guests at the San Jose CRC and clear out of there and go to the event. And so back to the event. This was my 3rd time going to one of these events. The first time was at an event in San Francisco before the book tour. That event didn't go so well. The first one didn't, the simulation event. But then the second one was in June in Sacramento, where I did the VIP line and got my picture taken, and I talked about that, and I talked about some of the content. This third one was another book tour talk, and he sort of gets up there and does his thing. And I think a lot about... I've got a lot of mixed feelings about the book tour, frankly, because I wish, like many other people, that he'd do the biblical series. But he's doing the book tour now, and that's what he's doing. And he's getting up and he's trying to think about material for the new book as he talks about the old book. He mentioned that I guess last night was 1 year since the release of 12 Rules for Life, and it sold 3 million copies, which is really incredible. It seemed to be a sold out crowd again there in San Jose, downtown San Jose. He gave sort of a summary. This was his first new talk of the year, and gave the Zurich talk wasn't the same type of public talk. Gave a summary of 12 Rules for Life and maps of meaning, and a lot of the stuff that I've talked about in this video that Node has talked about in his channel. A lot of recycled material in this talk. It was interesting because after the talk, we compared notes between some of us who came from Sacramento and Tyler, who's in my group. I'm trying to get some people from my group to do videos online with me, and we're not ready, we don't want to do this, but these are super smart people, and they have so many interesting ideas to share that I just would like to share them with the rest of you. Well, Tyler and I were kind of on one page, and Joey was on another page, and Tyler and I kind of felt that there was more recycled material, but Joey and Rick thought that there was more new material. So well, we can debate that. A lot about the rats and the chimps and the wolves. The heart of the lecture seemed to be that morality, which is obviously the big fight that's going on in our culture war right now, morality isn't arbitrary, and that's why he goes through the rats and the chimps and the wolves, that this stuff is built in from below, that there is a moral order. And this is where we get into natural law and where we get into natural theology, that stuff is built in from below, and we can discern to a degree what is normative by what we can see in the animals, in a sense, beneath us. And this also gets into Peterson's bigger issue that all this isn't simply arbitrary or socially constructed, that we're not going to escape this because this is how nature is built. Now, for people who don't like particular ways that things are built, it's kind of too bad. This is the world that we have, and we have the world that we have. He talked a few new additions where he talked about the APA guidelines a bit, and of course he didn't like them. And I actually thought his comments about the APA guidelines were helpful. That was something new that I hadn't heard him speak about, and he exposed some things in it that I thought were really helpful. And maybe I'll check my notes and go back into them another time. I noticed towards the end of the speech, when he got to his conclusion, that conscience came up again. And if you've noticed from some of the other things that he's been releasing, he's been talking more and more about conscience. And so I think we're probably going to hear more and more about that in terms of, well, what is conscience? Where does it come from? And again, from Peterson's stuff, it will come from below and filter up to us, and we should listen to our voice of conscience. And if you don't listen to your voice of conscience, you can be Cain instead of Abel, and so on and so forth. So the main talk was pretty much what you would expect. Now, like I said, I haven't had a lot of time to make videos, but I've been thinking about videos, and one of the videos that I've kind of wanted to make, I don't know if I'll make one, is a treatment on Adam and Sitch. They did a live Sitch and Friended, I think it is, where they had the new Congresswoman AOC on the cover with her college years dancing, and Adam confesses why he wanted her on the cover in the live stream. Their live streams go hours, and so it was like a 3-hour thing, but I listened to all of it, and I listened to a lot of it a few times because I thought they had some good conversation about Jordan Peterson. And Adam basically asserted, and this didn't surprise me when Adam said it, that Jordan Peterson is a more successful Jonathan Haidt in terms of the goal of reducing polarization. And Adam thought that this is, in fact, the center of Jordan Peterson's mission. Now, in the hierarchy of what Jordan Peterson's mission is, I'm not sure I agree with Adam. I think I agreed a little bit more with Sitch in that Jordan Peterson wants to help individuals. But figuring out exactly how Jordan Peterson's hierarchy with respect to these values is shaped is no simple thing. Most of us don't even know how our own hierarchies are shaped with respect to these different things. But one of the things that both Tyler and I, we talked about this, so kind of Joey and Rick from our meetup were on one side, and Tyler and I were on the other side, and Tyler mentioned too, which I had noticed throughout the night, that the big applause moments in the room were the tribal moments. Almost always in the two, both in June and now, Dave Rubin's warm-up act often says things like, "We're winning," and so right away when you frame it that way, it's us versus them. And if Peterson really wants to reduce polarization, you really have to watch the us versus them talk. And Jonathan Haidt is dead on right with this stuff, that religion binds and blinds, and morality binds and blinds, and you strengthen your tribe by pointing to those that are against you. And if you're in a very blue state like Silicon Valley, San Jose, and you go to a meeting like this, you can feel like here it's a very religious dynamic. We're the chosen few who see correctly, and we're standing against the man. And, it's very interesting because in a lot of ways, what I call progressive liberationism really embodies this idea that they're always the underdog, even when they win social competition after social competition, and they seem to always carry the field, but they're still always, they need that big man to fight against. You need that group to push against, because that keeps all your people together. And there's very much some of that same dynamic going on there, and that makes me uncomfortable, because I know, then you might say, well, as a pastor, don't you trade in this? And I'm sure sometimes I do, but I don't think we should. And the reason is you can gain a lot of group cohesion by pushing that button. But that button is the same thing you push when you're polarizing, because it's us versus them. And there are a number of times that Peterson said things which I thought, you know, this is sort of the angry, bitter side of him that comes out sometimes. The destruction of, because all what these people are looking for is the destruction of competence and virtue. They can't find anything else, because they can't find any other reason for why they're doing what they're doing. And while I'm sympathetic to the fact that competence should be, if you're hiring in a business, you should hire for competence, and you look for the competent plumber. He told the plumber story again, which I think is a great illustration. Or a masseuse, you look for a competent masseuse. That in fact, it is, Peterson is dead on right that it is a mischaracterization of our culture when we say that it's all just power, and Peterson hit that point really, really hard. I think, how to say this. I think those on the left are often sincere in that they think they're trying to bring justice, but I'm not sure how well their system is formed. Another video I haven't done was a video on Peter Rollins, where he's brought in by this organization that was an organization spurned because Jordan Peterson wouldn't debate this one guy, and so they have a bunch of videos out there. There's not a lot of people that have watched them, but I've got all kinds of thoughts on these videos, and I've been watching CSEC more because, you know, Peterson might talk to him, and I know nothing about him, so I've been watching The Pervert's Guide to Cinema. I think that's the name of the movie. So I've been spending some time trying to get into some of that stuff and understand how these, okay, so let's say Peterson was in 2018, the big, you know, conversation was with Sam Harris. Maybe in 2019, it will be with CSEC and some people on the left. And so I want to understand these folks on the left. And many of the comments that I made to, I think it was Jess, in my conversation about, I often find this posture of protesting to be, what tends to happen is, okay, so you protest, and then suddenly you're given the keys to the kingdom. What do? It is far easier to complain and protest than it is to govern and lead. And so I often find the left, it's always easier to point out someone else's flaws than to actually do it right yourself. And that's just a fact about human life. So I don't know that the left is against competence. I don't know how. I think people are reacting because of a fashionable spirit of morality. Now, I had a very interesting conversation today with a young man from Quebec, and I'll post that tomorrow or the next day or next week sometime. But we got into the question of spirit and some of the Jonathan Peugeot stuff that I've been talking about. So I've got all of the stuff rummaging around in my head. So I listened to the Peterson conversation with all of those things, and hopefully I'll be able to shake loose some time and make some videos, because I've got all this stuff in my head and I want to get it out, and that's what I do on my channel. But I don't necessarily want to shortchange the conversations too much. So
he's pretending it's the first time he's ever thought about whether or not he believes in God. So it looks like he's a tormented, like, moral man in chaos. It triggers emotions in you that you want to protect him and you want to serve under him. That's what I felt, because I felt like he, you know, heavy is the head that wears the crown.
So when I heard Jordan Peterson talk, I put in all these, I mind read him and put in all these thoughts he didn't specifically said, and that made me convince myself I wanted to serve under him. So now I'm protecting you from also believing things that people don't specifically say and getting manipulated by their words.
But you have to be forced to believe the opposite. Well, see, this is what Jordan Peterson doing unethical? Because I think there is an argument to be made that what he is doing is unethical, even though I don't think what he's doing is unethical. Like, I don't necessarily know how you do what he's trying. Like, how do you battle political polarization without doing something similar to what Jordan Peterson is doing?
Well, I don't know if I agree with you that I think Jonathan Haidt is trying to battle political polarization. I don't agree that that's what Jordan Peterson is trying to do.
Really?
Yeah. I think Jordan Peterson is trying to do is he's concerned with helping people through self-help programs and stopping the tide of what he views as neo-Marxism. I think that's his primary concerns.
But don't you think he sees the radical left as a pathology, an ideological pathology, and that
Yes.
that is part of the political polarization is a part of that.
Right, but what I mean is that, like, if you look at Haidt, he's very careful to try to not push people away. Like, that's how you fight polarization. You have to be kind of like this nice guy. I'm trying to tell you you're wrong without being like a fucking, without saying fuck you to your face.
Okay, so this is where we're going to talk strategy, because I often see Haidt as an ineffective Peterson.
Well, it depends. Okay, it depends what you mean. It depends what the goals are. As I think Haidt is more effective at possibly getting people on the left to come to his side, but I think Peterson is more effective at marshaling a force behind him that already agrees with him.
I think Haidt makes, if Haidt is trying to battle political polarization, as you say, I think he makes clumsy mistakes.
Well, he's only human.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, obviously, but
how can you attack Haidt? He's like your savior. He's your number one boy. What are you doing? What are you doing?
well, first of all, I'm not in love with Jonathan Haidt. Okay,
We all know. Everyone here in the chat knows that if you bought an AOC waifu pillow cover, you'd have to take off the Jonathan Haidt one first to replace it.
Come on, Jonathan Haidt. I am in love with Jonathan Haidt's research. Like it is what Jonathan Haidt has brought to the world as far as understanding. That's what I'm in love with. It's like Haidt, Haidt is
not
just,
his big bushy eyebrows, huh?
no.
You want to stare into his
So
face.
I do agree with you that Haidt is fighting political polarization, but I mean, this is a question that I have about. This is a question that I have about how the strategy to fight political polarization, because if you don't have any kind of cultural impact, you can't fight anything, right? And the only way,
I don't know if I agree with that.
okay, how do you
You have
how
a
do
lot
you
of people
fight
behind the scenes, right? That change things and influence things.
and Haidt is definitely working in that direction. I think
Right.
Scott Adams is working in that direction as well.
No, Scott Adams is very not behind the scenes.
What do you don't think so?
No, I mean he might be doing things behind the scenes, but I mean
think
he's
he
very, people really don't like him. Like he's very out there. Everyone knows where he stands.
Yes, but I think he is counseling people behind the scenes.
Yeah, I'm sure. he is.
Haidt and Scott Adams share the same philosophy. They're both social intuitionists, right? You realize that. You know what social intuitionism is?
Yes.
Just for the people who don't know what social intuitionism is. Yeah, I know, the police are coming for me. They're wizards.
They knew you were spilling all of Jonathan Haidt's secrets.
We got a wizard over here
to protect you.
So social intuitionism is the idea that people are largely driven by emotions, and that they deploy their reasoning to just justify their emotional intuitions, as Haidt would put it. And Scott Adams believes the same thing. He always talks about being a hypnotist. He realizes everyone is irrational. They think that they're rational, but they are completely irrational. I believe that as well. But if you believe that, you tend to become more rational. Do you have?
We'll see what I can get out. There's a Patreon update. I'm with Jonathan Pajot on when he said we'll have this thing out before Christmas. I thought I really doubt it. Now they're talking months, and part of me is afraid that Rubin and Peterson have sufficient resources to kind of set up their own thing, and Peterson put up this donation thing on his page. And, I looked at that and thought, well, I could maybe do something like that, but I don't know. I'm really thinking more about what it would take to build a platform that talking about platform for me, as it would be for Peterson, forces me to think about what's my goal with this, because a big part of my goal for making videos was just to talk out loud and process things and get good feedback, which has happened, and to find new interesting conversation partners, and that has happened, and to help people who, because of Jordan Peterson, want to explore the Christian faith. That's happening in my videos. So those are my goals. And so then I think, well, what's sustainability look like? I wrestle with that. My day job is I'm a pastor, and my church has been very supportive of this. They've seen it as a ministry of sorts. And so I'm still sorting all of this stuff out. So I don't know. I'm really interested to see what Jordan Peterson comes out with in terms of a platform. Platforms are really hard. He also said some interesting things about free speech, because, again, it's one thing to carp at one group about free speech. It's another thing to manage it. And he talked about, so he was talking to people who are running some large social media platforms, and they talked about, one organization figured out that they were being used by ISIS and terrorists, and they didn't want to be used by them, so then they exclude them. Well, so if you're not going to allow that speech, what's the speech next to that speech, and then speech next to that speech, and so on and so forth. So Peterson is very much wrestling with his fame and wrestling with his commitments and wrestling with his ideas, and doing things like this is really, really hard. And so then he said, well, maybe our platform won't be absolute free speech, maybe just what's legal speech in the U.S. or some standard like that. So again, it was Peterson wrestling with the realities that building things is hard. And this came up. Esther sent me a link to this subreddit, this in the Jordan Peterson subreddit. Topher and I have had a couple of conversations, and he apparently had applied to this Acton MBA fellowship and was accepted, but then began asking pretty specific questions, which I think, if I were him, this is what you do if you're a competent adult with responsibilities, to say, okay, well, so you say that Jordan Peterson is going to be involved in this MBA program. Can you give me more details? How much time will he be there? Because I completely understand Topher's reluctance and questions. And so here's a school that's offering an MBA, and they just know, boy, if they get Jordan Peterson's name on this thing, then and what exactly is that relationship, and how does this work? Those are all really good questions. And if someone's going to give years of their life and tens of $1,000s of money for the program and or debt, you're right to ask hard programs. And so that Reddit kind of, there's a lot of stuff in that Reddit. I found it interesting, and of course I've had a couple of conversations with Topher, and from everything I've seen of Topher, he's an upstanding guy who's trying to do the right thing. And so I'll put a link to that conversation in the notes. But my posture with a lot of these kinds of things is kind of my Treebeard posture. Don't be hasty. Read it. Consider it. Think about it. Be patient. Give time. Let Peterson weigh in. Obviously, if you're on the bubble there and you have to make a decision, you have to act, yes or no. So then you make your choice. And I think Topher is right in terms of bringing this out and saying, hey, if I'm going to dedicate a lot of my time, I'm kind of would like to know where this stacks up in Jordan Peterson's hierarchy of priorities. Peterson, his life changed dramatically over the last 2 years, and to figure out who to talk to, how to talk, where to go, where to spend your time, all the money coming in. I mean, I struggle. I have a tiny little YouTube, okay, 10,000 now. So it's not tiny little, but it's little in my terms. And I have this little thing that I've been doing for a year, and I struggle to figure out priorities and try not to shortchange the church and try to do the right thing. And I'm still figuring out where this goes. So I try not to be hasty on any front, and to speak and to listen and to consider and to try not to get too inflammatory. And try to debate issues and not people, and so on and so forth. So that's out there. So welcome to 2019, and there'll be more meetups. And we talked to the Fresno people, and maybe we'll do one down in Fresno because some coming in from San Luis Obispo and other places, they can make it to Fresno a little bit easier. And so we'll do more meetups. We'll do our Sacramento meetups. There'll be more conversations. Hopefully figure out a platform post Patreon. And I am heading to Australia to do a conference in Melbourne about Jordan Peterson in March 30. And there should be more. I bought the plane tickets. I didn't want to announce it until I had the plane tickets. So bought the plane tickets. So I'm going. So more information on that as it comes out. This has been something that's been in the works for a few months. A lot of people have, I'd really love to do something with Jonathan Peugeot this year. Maybe a live thing with him here in Sacramento. Hopefully that's a possibility. So who knows what's coming in 2019, but we'll see. So thanks for watching. Thanks for commenting. Thanks for supporting. Those of you who are supporting this financially, again, that blows me away. You're smart to do it. I remember before I set up Patreon, I set up Patreon in like May, and I thought, well, why should I do this? But after I started getting supporting, it's kind of like, oh, now I feel kind of an obligation to continue to do this. I probably would have kept doing it anyway because it's just fun to do, but then it also provides more opportunities for thinking about, well, what does ministry look like forward if I wasn't quite so dependent financially on Living Stones? Could I free Living Stones up from, some of their obligations towards me and maybe bring in other staff and help the church in other ways? Or, I just always thinking about new things. So yeah, leave a comment. Let me know what you think. Only 21 minutes. Sorry, Julian. Sometimes that's what I got.